All right, we're going to look at day 70, which is the next day on multiplication is scaling. Again, the two standards are 5NFB 5A and 5B. We read these for a lesson yesterday. Why don't you go ahead, if you don't remember exactly what the language of the standard is, go ahead and pause the video so you can go back and read them. What we're going to do right now is look at some items that were on the park from last year, because I need you to see how this actually grows and is more complicated. There are some more nuanced items that we didn't get to touch on yesterday. So let's look at this first park item. Order the following expressions from least value to greatest value. So what we did yesterday was we just looked at fractions that were greater than, less than, or equal to one whole and thought about multiplying whole numbers and fractions by those fractions. So this item actually asks students to do a little bit of a different skill. We actually have two fractions here that are less than one whole. So then we need to identify, well, if I multiply 19 times 1/2 and I multiply 19 times 2/3, which is going to give us a smaller product. And the answer is 19 times 1/2 because 1/2 is smaller than 2/3. So the same thinking applies, but it's just like if you multiply by a smaller fraction, you're going to end up with a smaller product. If you multiply by a bigger fraction, you end up with a bigger product. Let's go ahead and look. Like this next item is very similar to the ones that we did yesterday. Using the drop-down menus to make these comparisons true, that's very similar to the work we did yesterday. This word problem, again, very similar to the work we did yesterday. He multiplied the numerator by 2, he multiplied the denominator by 2. So if I multiply 2/5 by 2 over 2, I know that 2/5 is going to be equal to 2/5 because the value is equivalent to 1. So answer choice C. And then we get into some problems like this. Look, this is from the ADAT. Look at number 24. Fatima makes a bracelet that is 6 1/4 inches long. She wants to make a new bracelet that is 3/4 the length of the original. So which statement is true? Go ahead and take 30 seconds or 15 seconds to read those answer choices. The correct answer here is going to be C because 3/4 is less than one whole. So again, taking the thinking that we did yesterday, but now it's in a word problem context that might be a little more challenging for students. We didn't want to throw this at them on the first day because I think that that would have just really thrown them off. And then this last item is very similar to the work we did yesterday, much larger number. I think we can include those on do nows and on homeworks using these much larger numbers, but that's not the major work of what we're doing today. Let's go ahead and look at our examples for today. The very first one is Shania multiplied 6 1/3 times 4/5. Is the product greater than, less than, or equal to 6 1/3? Explain how you know. And then flipping it, is the product greater than, less than, or equal to 4/5? Explain how you know. So this time we switch, which is going to be the original number. 4/5 is less than 1. So I know that the product is less than 6 1/3. However, I flip it here, and we're going to now say that 4/5 is the original number, and 6 1/3 is greater than 1, so my product has to be greater than 4/5. We're using the commutative property and thinking about which one is this original number. Next, I'm looking at example 2. Rashawn started with the fraction 4/9. He multiplied the numerator by 9, then he multiplied the denominator by 8. Is the product greater than, less than, or equal to 4/9? So again, I would have students actually first write out what the multiplication is. 4/9 times 9/8. So now we're recognizing that 9/8 is greater than 1, so the product is going to be greater than 4/9. The next item, or the next part, is Rashawn's product greater than, less than, or equal to 4/9 times 2. So this is where this item comes in, this initial one that we looked at. We know that 9/8 is less than 2 wholes. And how do I know that? I know that 9/8 is less than 2 wholes because 16/8 would be 2 wholes. So because 9/8 here is less than 2 wholes, this first product is going to be less than 4/9 times 2. I'm going to say that again. 9/8 is less than 2. So 4/9 times 9/8 is less than 4/9 times 2. Then we're going to say if you multiply by a larger factor, you'll get a larger product. 2 is greater than 9/8. So this is going to be a larger product. Let's look at this next one. Here we have work that looks very similar to what we did on the park. That park item, we have 23 times 1/4, 4/4, 4/3, and 2/3. So right away we should be thinking which of these numbers is greater than 1 whole, equal to 1 whole, or less than 1 whole. Here I have two fractions, 1/4 and 2/3, that are less than 1 whole. So I know that those are going to be the least. 4/4 is equal to 1 whole, and 4/3 is greater than 1 whole. Then I need to compare 1/4 and 2/3. 1/4 I know is smaller than 2/3 because 1/4 is less than 1/2 and 2/3 is greater than 1/2. This we should do as a right pair share. So that means everyone writes first, and then we pair in partners to explain what our thinking was, and then we share out loud. While they are pairing, you should be running around the classroom getting snippets of their conversation so that you can identify like which student you want to share out loud. Then you should also say like, if you don't have this exemplar written down, please write it next to whatever you wrote. That way we have students leaving with the correct answer and the correct thinking. Finally, let's look at example 4. Sadia, Marquise, and Trinity are all holding a fundraiser for the charity. Sadia raised 7/8 as much money as Marquise, and Marquise raised 1 1/3 times as much as Trinity. Who raised the most money? The way I would encourage you to encourage your students to think about this is that first I would look at this first statement. Sadia raised 7/8 as much as Marquise. That means that I know that Sadia raised less than Marquise. Then I'm looking at Marquise raised 1 1/3 times as much as Trinity. Marquise raised more than Trinity because this fraction is greater than 1. For that reason, I know that Marquise raised the most. Again, we'll have students explain their reasoning. And then this would be like another nice opportunity for you to do a think, pair, share, or write, pair, share. And then a lot of the practice in here looks like students explaining their work for the rest of the day. So explaining your reasoning, a lot more items that look very similar to what we saw on the introduction to new material. Let me figure out how to stop this.